story of Fred Weissman, a man who grew up in the United States during a period of family taboo and was inspired by the music and the love of the people around him. Having trouble with society, he hit points of depression, but he persevered, and this is his story. Fred's story begins in the 1960s. Kennedy had been elected president, and Fred began to attend college at the New Jersey School of Medicine and Dentistry. When asked about dental school, Fred often said that it was the worst time of his life and soon regretted going there. However, it gave him a scope on reality as the world turned itself on its own head. The threat of nuclear war and the Cuban Missile Crisis soon enveloped the United States of America, as people scurried for cover and the Red Scare reigned supreme. But Fred was having his own personal troubles as his social life enveloped everything around him. For the first time in his life, Fred began to date a man. John, a middle-aged married man from New Jersey, opened him up to politics and the thrill of being homosexual. It was through John that Fred met Bobby Kennedy and became a huge supporter of the Democratic Party and the Bohemian ideals. However, when they broke up, Fred, embarrassed by his sexuality, returned to dating women. The year was 1964, the same year as Kennedy's assassination, and Fred was a practicing dentist in New York. However, even with his success, he was unhappy because of his hidden sexuality. He attempted to cover it up with marriage to Susan O'Haver in 1965. Yet, after 6 weeks of marriage, they split apart. Years later, Fred remarked that it's better to get married in the morning. In case it doesn't work out, you don't waste the entire day. The realization. Struggling with family pressure, he finally gave up the dental practice. Unsure of what to do, him and 4 of his friends from California moved to Fire Island, and it was there that he changed his life forever. Together with his friends, he dropped acid for the first time and went on a crazy, trippy ride towards realization. Alone on a beach, he finally realized that he was unhappy. Even today, he remembers that moment as the turning point in his life. Alone, and at the turn of the century, he finally embraced his sexuality and refused to date women any longer. He remembers feeling alone and utterly afraid in a society that finds gay taboo. However, the thing that frightened him the most was revealing this huge secret to his family. He remembers coming out of the closet more like coming out of a steel cage, with no bars and no knob on the inside. Yet despite it all, the family took it extremely well. He remembers my grandfather saying, "You like boys. Other people like boys. What's your problem?" 1970 had rolled around, and Fred moved to California, where he got a job as a head of research at UCLA. Head of the Eastern Philosophy and Medicine section, and director of research for biofeedback, he quickly became immersed in spiritual guiding. For the first time, Fred was happy. Meditation acupuncture took away stress, and the LA night scene and gay community quickly enriched his spirit. However, after 6 years, his hippie ideology got him fired after discord with the management. For the next few years, he spent his time at the beach, searching himself mentally and spiritually. The 1980s had arrived, and gay rights had finally appeared on the headlines. Even though Fred didn't march in parades or go to speeches, he still held his own in a land that was still riddled with discrimination and segregation. In 1985, he was hired by Saturday Night Live as casting director. He spent 2 years searching the country for the funniest comedians. Among his findings were Dana Carvey, Damon Wayans, and Robert Downey Jr. However, The management of Saturday Night Live looked down upon gays, so he led a secret life for 4 years, never telling anyone he worked with that he was gay, and keeping his relationships as silent as possible. This was a hard time for him, and he often entered states of depression where only drugs could help him. And at the worst possible moment, the AIDS virus hit the gay community by force, killing nearly 80% of Fred's friends. Fred entered a state of serious depression. However, as the 80s pushed through, so did Fred. He made new friends, and the 90s treated him well. With the love of his family and of several nephews, Fred Weissman's story will live on.